Miranda is a licensed marriage and family therapist who loves helping therapists bridge the gap between what it takes to be a great therapist who gets great clinical outcomes and what it takes to run a successful therapy practice. She has helped thousands of therapists from around the world make the mindset shifts that allow a more effortless application of marketing strategies that grow a private practice that is not just financially sustainable, but that gets great clinical outcomes. Welcome, Miranda. We're so glad to have you today.
Hey, everybody. I really am so thankful that you guys reached out to connect with us and that we're able to find a way to support your individuals and the amazing therapists that you work with every day. I think there is so much that happens in this intersection between trying to do good work for our clients and get them amazing outcomes, and also trying to make sure that we can sustain the work that we do and that we're taking care of ourselves along the way. So I'm really excited to be here with you all. It's a very interactive, if you want it to be, kind of presentation. So feel free to post questions along the way. I'll integrate them as we go. And really, as we kind of go into the next slide of today's agenda, we're really going to be diving into how setting your fees really can make or break your practice, really addressing what are the struggles that we all often have when it comes to setting the fee and how to run a business, a step-by-step guide to calculating your fair fee, right? And it's different for everybody. It's not a magical thing. How that fee and your process impact client outcomes. And often we don't think about that. We think money is this separate thing, and what we do clinically is like these are two totally separate things, but they're actually really intertwined. And then how to have conversations around fees with your clients. Does that sound good to everybody? I'd love to hear. Feel free to say yes in the chat if that's why you're here. And the next slide, why does your fee matter? Let's kind of talk about this. Some of the space that we're in, we're living in a time where there's more awareness about the need to care for our mental health. Even several years ago, as the pandemic happened, the governor of California was like, stay home and get therapy. Like, this is a big deal. However, there's still a lot of stigma out there. And a lot of that stigma has been internalized by all of us. We can so easily minimize the work that we do. And that shows up in how we run our business, the care and thought we put into our decisions, our planning or lack thereof, our lack of understanding of what is needed to run our practices without burning out. Anybody feeling a little burnout over the last couple of years? And it often leads to us having our fees all over the place, which is really stressful, or accepting insurance contracts that are unsustainable. Taking clients because we don't feel confident referring them out, keeping clients who we know like this is not a good fit, but being afraid of the loss of income or being afraid of hurting them. And so we keep these caseloads that don't make a lot of sense. And we don't get the support that we need. That can look like mental health support, business support, all the rest of it. And so the stigma really impacts us too. The next slide. Your work really matters. In addressing the stigma, you can address the systems that perpetuate it. But for your own journey, that acknowledgement of the truth, that can help to erode that internalized stigma, right? So if you don't mind, we're going to do something a little different today, or not that different. Usually you're on the other end of these things. What if we do a little guided imagery? If you feel comfortable going ahead and closing your eyes for a moment, just taking a deep breath in and out, and just get into your body, feel your skin from the top of your head and any hair follicles you do or don't have, all the way down to the nail beds on your toes and all around. Take a moment and think about the powerful work that you're doing. And if you can, think about a recent session that went really well. Like, think about one of those moments where you just go, oh, yes, this is why I do what I do. bring that up in as much detail as you possibly can. Where were you sitting? What does the room look like? What's the temperature in the room? Were the windows open and closed? Were the lights high or dim? Maybe you even remember what color the client was wearing. Soak it in and feel in your body what it meant to be present for that shift in the room. Take a moment and think through and just sit in awe of what your work can provide for your clients, for their families, their friends, and for generations to come. What transformations have you seen in your therapy rooms? Ending abuse cycles, healing addictions, befriending and coping with depression and anxiety. It's a relationship unlike any other. You are transforming lives for generations to come. Our work can stop the cycle of transgenerational trauma and help people experience transgenerational healing. Breathe that in. Next slide. Your work is priceless, and so are you. You teach clients to value yourselves, their time, their health, and how to make decisions that reflect love and self-respect. Through therapy, you take them through a process of evaluating and understanding themselves, what they desire or need, and help them shift beliefs and behaviors and boundaries. You help people transform their view of what relationships can be and create completely new family dynamics and norms. What if you do the same for you in your practice? Is it deserving of being in the world? Do you deserve the chance to help others? If your purpose and passion is to help others, how are you going to take care of yourself? This work is intense. Can I get some raised hands on that? It's intense. How will you ensure you can continue growing in knowledge, taking care of your physical health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, your relational health, and all the parts that you teach your clients about? You need to be your best self to be able to fully show up for clients. Clients, or anyone for that matter, so seldom to get to have relationships and interactions with people who give them full presence, full attention, wholeness. It's a lot to think about. And in order to do this powerful work, you need to also be able to take care of you. You're the product. You're the agent of change. Without you and your employees, if you have them, there is nothing to charge for. So why, I think it's so easy, next slide, when we're diving into this to get into this place of comparison. And it's not as simple as saying our fee should be X because that's the going rate, or that's what my colleague charges, or I should charge $10 less than my clinical supervisor or whatever. And why is that? Because each of us have completely different financial situations and needs in private practice. Whether you're single, married, have kids, don't have kids, have extensive student loans, anybody out there? Whether you have a chronic illness or you're nearing retirement and don't have a buffer, whether you live in a rural area or you live in a city with a high cost of living, your needs change based on the cost of rent in your area, your specialty, and so much more. Now, this often comes up where we think about fees and we talk about usual and customary. So what is usual and customary? Y'all, it's made up by insurance companies primarily. We decide, or they decide, business owners decide what usual and customary is. And often insurance companies set what is usual and customary based on what works for them and their business. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later, that can vary wildly, and it has nothing to do with the cost of living. It has nothing to do with anything else than what they are able to get people to agree to. That's it. So let's talk about your needs, right? Take a moment and write down, where are you at in your life? Literally write it down, y'all. A little piece of paper. If you don't, grab it out. Let's make this work for you. What do you really need to be able to do this work? And next slide, sorry. We had a little slide issue, so I'm having a little bit of, I have to remember for the slide advancement person. Thank you. So, are you willing to honor and say what you need? It's the first hurdle in setting your fee. This is all Really important. Your unique needs are valid and deserving of respect and need to be considered as you review this foundation of your business. So without a thoughtful fee and a real income coming into your bank account, your private practice can't be a sustainable business. And y'all, if it can't be a sustainable business, you're not going to keep doing it. You're not going to keep working. In fact, we have more people leaving this profession than entering it right now. There's a need and a desire. So today we're going to talk about how to create a fee that really makes sense for you. Now, we can't talk about money without talking about money stories and about all the things that we wrap up in the idea of money. Our money stories are influenced by how we were raised, the culture we're raised in, our religious or faith upbringing, the countries we've lived in, but also all the systems that have surrounded us. Capitalistic versus socialistic versus communistic societies all greatly influence you as you grow up and how you see money in business. So think about your own money story. What did your caretaker, parent, mentor teach you about money? How was it talked about or not talked about in your family? What was your socioeconomic status and the experience of that? And then think about the systems that surrounded you, education, government, all these things influence how you see money. What was your first experience with using money, earning money, spending money? Right? I think this is such an interesting piece. Like for me, money growing up was you don't talk about it. You don't get excited about it. And there's not enough money to go around. And there was this weird middle ground of you can't go out and make money. It was like I wasn't allowed to have a job, but I also wasn't allowed, I didn't have any income, any money, and we didn't have enough to go around. So it was this very like uncomfortable tension, right? Where I would get in trouble for like being an entrepreneur and washing cars or, you know, whatever the dynamic was. Like, oh no, that's not okay for you to do. But also it's not okay for you to ask for anything. It's not okay for you to have any needs. And so it was this weird space. Whereas Kelly, my business partner, she had this whole thing where she had a grandmother that had a black book, and every gift that was given or loan that was made, $2, $5, everybody went in the black book. And her parents were like, don't go in the black book. You don't want to ever have to need anything from anybody, right? So write down your first memory with money. And I think this will be important as you think about like the stuff that comes up when we start to do the math today, and just notice and maybe have some compassion for those other older parts of yourself that might go, oh, how much? I don't know. That doesn't work, right? Next slide. We also have money stories in our profession, right? The therapy world right here, especially in the States, we start out of the gate. Most of us overwork going to school full time, working at unpaid or low paid placements, maybe even with an additional full-time job to pay the bills. I had that. I worked full time, went to school full time, and then of course was doing the underpaid or unpaid. We're often taught to do as much as possible with as little as possible, and how to continually lower our standards based on the system that we work within. And this dynamic often becomes our norm that sets a standard for what our career should look like. But is this really how it's meant to be? So many of us end up working tons of hours, taking on a lot of clients so that we can pay the bills or even gather hours toward licensure for free. You've been there, haven't you? At first, you have the energy to do all the work, to lose the sleep, to skip the meals, because you see how powerful therapy is. And then things start to shift. You see more clients than you realistically can keep track of, much less do focused, impactful therapy with. You end up feeling more and more stressed, less rested, less passionate, more guilty, more burned out, and not getting great outcomes, which feels horrible, horrible. You start to question whether you should be doing this work or whether you can get back to that place of joy and ease in doing therapy, right? Anybody experience that? Most of us have had this experience. This isn't why you're in practice. You didn't get into this work to go without sleep, with mounting debts, taking whatever fee or insurance plan you can get, scheduling clients in every nook and cranny, and this feeling of burnout always knocking at your door, right? Next slide. And this is why we're the worst paid master's degree. When did caseloads of 40, 50, or 100 become the norm? What therapy pioneer getting great outcomes that we studied in school is seeing 35 clients a week and living a balanced life. When did things shift that a private practice 45 to 50-minute psychotherapy session is appropriate to reimburse at less than $35 an hour? It's happening right now this year by insurance companies. Therapists are accepting these reimbursements and fees even though they can't live on it while sustaining good work. They're charging fees that aren't sustainable, and other therapists are looking to them to see what's appropriate to charge. And it's just this crazy cycle. Therapists are just doing the best they can with the information they have, but the decisions are adding up. Next slide. Your decision on what to charge could be a contribution that harms the viability of this profession. If we don't speak up for what's needed to do great work, to be great therapists, the profession will collapse. By undervaluing ourselves, our needs, our knowledge of what good clinical work takes, we can unknowingly contribute to perpetuating the stigmas about mental health and what it really takes to provide quality care in our communities. And we're hearing from people who are starting to second guess licensure because they feel like getting licensed means they'll get paid less than if they focus on coaching or another field. That's crazy. This disregard for the power of the work we do and what it truly takes to do it well happens not only because we treat how we treat ourselves, but how we treat those who work for us as employees or contractors and supervisees. You have such a power to change the tide with a positive influence on the field. The first step is just owning, right? Owning. What have I believed? What have I allowed to internalize that's really not true, right? And even think about, oh, I can't believe that they've charged that much, or, oh gosh, that's just too much for therapy. No one could possibly afford that. Whatever things that you've said or thought in your mind, right? Maybe we can take a deep breath and go, yeah, I did think that. And now I'm on the other side and I've realized, oh, there's a lot to this place, right? Maybe we can stop saying that, oh, well, everybody has to pay their dues. Maybe we can stop contributing to poor wages in the field, stop judging others for their fees. And if you're a person who's done this stuff, we're going to help you change that because the stigma has to stop. If we hide or feel shame, we're simply saying that what we do, right, doesn't matter. It minimizes the power of therapy, and we really think this work is priceless. Next slide. Breaking the cycle starts with you. A lot of our business schoolers and coaching clients, even when they've been in practice for years, come to us wanting to break that cycle of fear and financial struggle that they're in, but they don't want to look at the fee they're charging. Even though it's the main reason they're stuck in the first place, they usually want to up the hours to make more income before they look at the fee, or they want to talk about passive income streams and doing more work, even though they're already burnt out and tapped out. There are therapists out there, and we've talked to them, who are seeing 10 clients a day, 4 to 7 days a week, with literally no gap between their sessions, 45-minute sessions back to back, because they realized that they could do 5 clients in the morning and 5 clients in the evening with doing that. How do you ensure great documentation? When do you go to the bathroom? When do you have, when you drink water? When do you have time to reflect and explore how to improve your work with clients? There are really well-meaning therapists who are legitimately falling asleep in session all the time. Therapists who can't remember their sessions from their clients from session to session because they're trying to do more than their body can handle. I don't think they're inherently bad therapists, at least I hope not. I think they've just gotten into the system that's unsustainable. Every client deserves to have your highest and best services. Do you agree? I want to hear it. If you're like, yes, this is it. Do you want your clients to get your best? Type yes in the chat if you believe in clients getting great therapy, right? Next slide. So this first step is we have to accept what we need personally. Sometimes we want to do as much as we can because we don't want to accept our circumstances. It would mean we might have to grieve some tough stuff or challenge our family of origin stories. We see this all the time in our business school. Single parents, people with chronic illness, people who have other roles in their family as caretaker, people going through major life changes like divorce or moving. When you don't acknowledge the needs of your life, how can you tell your business to meet those needs? And how can you be present if you're stressing yourself out to fill someone else's life and schedule instead of your own? Your clients can feel it. Imagine if you look at your life and say, what can I give to my business and also be in my life the way I need to be? Being honest about your time will help you not only determine your fee, but it'll help you set a schedule so that you can be present with all the clients you see from the beginning of the week to the end of the week, from the start of the day to the end of the day. Can you imagine leaving your last session of the week feeling content, documentation done, everybody billed, with enough energy to go home, cook a healthy dinner, and enjoy a conversation with a loved one? Next slide. What about accepting what you need clinically? What do you need to be a good clinician and get great outcomes? Training, supervision, and support clinically, y'all, it all takes time and money. You want to have these opportunities, and you want to have a fee that will support these efforts too. Maybe you also need to look at seeing your clients more regularly, having a regular slot, because for them, it means they have a better relationship and more transformative work, and financially you can plan more easily. If you're in a group practice or have other services, you want to have great outcomes with your expansion. These things, they all still apply. You expand out of abundance, not desperation, right? How many people have been like, I need a group practice because I'm not making enough money with these insurance contracts? Just simply hiring more people doesn't necessarily change that math, y'all. If the math doesn't work, you can literally just bring another person in and now they're underpaid and you're still underpaid because you're working more to bring another person on, right? And what would your practice look like if you operated at the highest standard of care? Not to mention how it impacts your clients to have a therapist who isn't fearful of taking a vacation, has a solid retirement, doesn't come to sessions sick, and has a buffer in case of emergencies. All the things that we want for our clients, we deserve them too. So write down the things that you need clinically. Right? Just take a moment. Supervision. Maybe it's like some more training. Maybe it's just some time to do your documentation, right? Next slide. This also has a huge impact on the clinical outcomes. When you don't respect and honor what your business and body needs, when you diminish your impact, you and your clients both lose out. But when you hold that space of transformation, it's inspiring. The biggest impact, the biggest indicators of outcomes is the clinician's ability to build a trusting, connected relationship with the client. That means you have to be in an emotional and physical space to build a relationship with the client. The number one factor to being successful to outcomes is acknowledging and accepting what you need to be a great clinician. And this looks different for everyone. We need time to create the relationship. We need space. If you can't discuss money with clients, what else are you not able to discuss? Right? What happens when you're not clear about your fee? You get defensive. It gets confusing for the clients. And what about addressing the fees ongoing? Do you let balances rack up? Do you keep a credit card on file? Do you have resentments with your lower fee clients? Right? Next slide. So it's time to decide, are your clients getting your best? Take a moment and look at your schedule and energy level. Are your clients getting your best, happiest, and most present self? Are you a positive contribution to the field? Take out a sheet of paper right now and write down the impact of having a fair fee on your clinical work and on the field as a whole. If you were to make some changes right now, what would that mean for your clinical work? Write it down. Your clients want to work with a well-rested, happy, inspired therapist. They want to work with someone who's able to put the time and energy into delivering them excellence and being awesome. I'll be honest, I'm not choosing a bargain basement dentist. As much as I don't want to pay for dental work, I'm going to find someone who's awesome and that I trust to do the work. You create expertise and value today at this moment as you choose. And we know you. You'll deliver your highest and best. We just need to make sure you're freed up to create that excellence. Your fee is one way you free yourself up to provide that excellence. So who's ready to do a little math? Are we ready to kind of dive into some math here? So next slide, we're going to do step 1. How many sessions per week? Now, when you think about this number, I want you to think about, we talked earlier about this idea of from the first client of the week to the last client of the week, that everyone's getting the same person, like everyone's getting the same Miranda, right? And this is also from the first client of the day to the last client of the day. Is everyone getting the same energy level, right? So I could, for example, I could do 10 sessions a day, but I can't do 10 sessions a day, 5 days a week. I could do 10 sessions a day if I had a day in between, and I could do that twice a week, right? But I couldn't do 10 sessions a day and actually do a healthy meal and be present and be connected with anybody emotionally outside of that, right? So I get to look and go, okay, well, what would that look like? I could do 6 clients a day, 3 days a week, and actually have time to go to the gym, be done, engage with my son or my partner after work. Yeah, I could do that. What does that look like? And again, remembering too, that as we're thinking about this amount of sessions per week, we also have to have some mental space to knowing that as private practice owners, we're taking phone calls. We have some other tasks involved, right? So think about this not out of the context of having to return phone calls, do consultations, do insurance billing if that's what you do your billing, do your progress notes. Think about it within the context. What is that magic number? For many of us, like when I came from the nonprofit world, my number was like 32. That does not work in private practice, y'all. I don't have a receptionist. I don't have someone who's taking care of all these other pieces and taking care of the money things. I'm taking care of all of it myself. And my emotional energy was also very different. The 32 was constantly putting me in a space of burnout. And I wanted to do a different level of care in my private practice, right? So that's step one. Do you have that number, that amount of sessions per week? That could easily be, for some people, that's 8. Other people, it's 12. Some people, it's 15. I would recommend, if you are new to private practice and you're doing full-time private practice, and this is not like part-time, full-time private practice, I'd recommend starting this number about 20. About 20. And you might go down from there. And again, this might depend on if you're doing longer sessions, you're working with angry couples, or you're working with trauma, 20 clients, too much, right? Then step 2, how many weeks are you working per year? So think about this piece of, and think about this even in the terms of your context. So like if you're living in Minnesota where the power goes out, you live in a rural area, the power goes out several times a year. How many weeks do you need to take off for weather related? How often do you get sick? If you have a chronic illness, this might be a little higher. How many weeks of vacation? Do you have small children or do you travel? How often, how often do you get sick, vacation? And if there's certifications or trainings that you want to take, we need to factor this in as well. So we would recommend starting with about 6 weeks off. So out of 52, it'd be about 46 weeks a year. But again, you can kind of like play with that number, but really think about what it really takes. And then the third step, next slide, we should be on step 3 for my slide person. Thank you again. How much gross revenue do you need or want to make? Now, this gross revenue, the amount you want to make, is different than what you actually take home. So for a lot of people, they just go, gross income, I just want to make $100,000 a year. If I made $100,000 a year, everything would be great. We're going to do some math later, and you're going to find out that what you actually take home after making $100,000 a year might be less than what you made in your nonprofit, y'all. So it's really important to look at the bigger picture. So the gross income is your take-home income, plus the taxes you need to pay, plus your expenses in private practice. So the next 2 slides that we're going to be going into, we have a lot of expenses here as a private practice owner. A lot of things that got paid for when you were an employee or at a for-profit or nonprofit that we have to take some time to put in place. So you're paying for your rent, you're paying for your computer, your internet, replacing of your computer, you're paying for the paper and the pens and all the things that you need, the books, all the pieces. So again, next slide, in that second slide, actually go back to the first slide for a second. I know you might be trying to like write it all down. You can just take a slide shot with your camera if you need to. Do that. It'll probably make you a little happier. And then we can do that for that next slide as well, right? And these are a lot of the forgotten expenses that we have, right? That space of like, what about like outsourcing and retirement and savings? And what about long-term care and those CEUs? What does that all look like? And often most of us are like, okay, well, I want to keep it really simple. You can, but there are costs to doing business, y'all. Okay. So in this next slide, intention and planning, you're going to want to go back to this step 3. You're not going to get the perfect number right now. That's okay. But you can change and adjust this over time so that you can really get an accurate reflection of what this gross income needs to be. When we have people go through our business school, we actually have like a whole spreadsheet that people go through that they answer a bunch of questions, and it puts all this stuff in there because people so often forget about these pieces. And you may not know what the answers, like, I don't know how much rent would be. I don't know how much a computer would be. So you go in and you research and you put in some particular numbers. Okay. It doesn't have to be perfect right now. We just got to start somewhere. And then next slide, step 4, we're going to take and use this formula. We're going to take this gross income, the total, this big number. It's going to be a big number. And we're going to divide that by the weeks worked per year. And that gives us the gross that we need to make per week on the weeks that we're working. And that gross per week, remember, is not your take-home pay. It is a combination of the gross income, all your expenses, and even your savings for vacation and sick time and such, right? So it's a whole different number. And then that gross week per week, we divide that by the number of sessions per week, and that gives us the fee that we actually charge our client. That fee is not at all connected to like what we got paid as an hourly employee. It's a completely different thing, right? So we're going to break it down on this next slide even further. So let's say $120,000 gross income. You're like, oh my gosh, that's so much. And a lot of people feel like I made so much. Why am I still struggling? And it's often because they picked a number at random for their gross income goal, right? So let's look at that like $120,000 income goal. Let's say 40,000 of that was going to expenses, including retirement, business, saving for slow times, rent, sick time. If your tax rate was about 30%, another $36,000, depending on what you write off before calculating your net income, and that would mean a take-home pay of about $44,000 or $3,600 a month. Right? Here are some more examples on the next slide. It should have a green background, right? $120,000 gross income, working 50 weeks per year, $2,400 gross per week, 20 weekly sessions, $120 fee. Another person doing 50 weeks per year, and they are seeing 12 weekly sessions. Maybe that is they're working with really high conflict couples. That's all that they can do, y'all. It might be a $200 fee. Another person working 42 weeks per year, right? They might do 20 weekly sessions, $142 a year. And you go through this process where like the numbers are going to look different for everybody. Are you seeing how this kind of comes together? So the next slide, this is for a lot of you, right? You start to look at these numbers and you go, oh my gosh, I can't do this. What I really should be doing is I should be starting a nonprofit, right? You know the impact on the field and your clients. Now let's talk about what to do when you're running a for-profit business with a nonprofit mentality. And if you have this nonprofit mentality, it's one of the fastest ways to close your business. You don't want that, and your clients don't want that, and we don't want that. I hear from clinicians all the time about their focus on covering expenses and focusing on the cost to own the business. They're trying to often recreate the services and accessibility of a nonprofit for their for-profit business. And guess what? Those free and sliding scale slots at local nonprofits, they're not really free. Many of those nonprofits have multi-million-dollar budgets through fundraising and grants that allow them to provide those reduced fee or free services. In fact, I looked up some mental health nonprofits that I used to work with years ago, and they had annual budgets that were millions of dollars. Of the 2 mental health nonprofits that we looked up in Modesto, California, one of them, their budget was over $17 million. The other was over $12 million. There are therapists like you who are spending hours trying to cut out 0.25% on your credit card charges while sliding down 10 to 30% for every client. It doesn't matter how low your expenses are if you aren't making money. Your fee is what makes your business a business. And the fee you charge is upon which your business functions. So let's go and look at some of these numbers. And this one's kind of a fun one. You can take a picture of this one too. So if we look at this, and we do this for a little bit of easy math, right? Clients per week, we're using 50 weeks on this because it makes it really easy to do that, right? If to do this math, 28 clients a week, if your full fee is 130, right? But you're actually charging people only about 100 on average, then the annual income loss is $42,000, right? At 20 clients per week, if your full fee is 150, but your actual average is 110, then you're losing about $40,000 a year, right? And it basically comes out to, if we do this math for this 50 week year, this is just for easy math, every $10 on average, where you take that average fee that goes down from 150 to 140, from 140 to 130, and you're sliding down $10 per year, comes out to $10,000 per year at the end of the year for every 20 clients you see. 20 clients, 50 weeks a year, every $10, $10,000. So that might make sense of that's where your savings is. That's the retirement. That's the buffer for being able to replace your laptop or to not feel freaked out when something goes wrong with your car. This is the buffer. This is all the pieces that is often having such a huge impact. All those places where you don't charge for your no-shows or your last minute reschedules, even though you say you're going to, this is where that money is going, right? Now, often when you do the math, right? I'm sorry, next slide. You have an aha moment and you decide, wait, I want more time than that, or I want to see fewer clients. That's fine. You can play around with the numbers, but it's important to see that impact overall and what it means for your weekly schedule and your time off. We'd say about 90% of people going through our business school that apply the formula, they change their fee. And another 20, 30 to 30% ultimately begin doing additional streams of income when they discover that one-to-one is not enough to provide the income they desire, but not after they manage their clients and their own basic needs, right? So if you're in a place of saying, well, I'm just going to need to do multiple streams of income, to me, if you don't have some basic retirement, if you don't have a vacation, a once a year, a simple vacation, these kinds of things, that should all be taken care of from your primary source of income. If you're in a place of, I want to save to get 20% down on a house. I want to be able to live in $1 million house. I want to go on super fancy vacations. That's where you might need to do multiple streams of income, but you shouldn't need multiple streams of income to just survive, y'all. That's not the way it's supposed to work. So kind of time to decide, what would it look like? How would it impact you if you started charging a fee that was based on numbers? That you started really realizing and making it a space of saying, you know what, I actually can't afford to do sliding scale because I don't have $1 million budget. I'm doing a sliding scale and then I'm resenting my clients and it's not feeling good. What would it mean if you only charge this fee? Take 10 seconds and write down the impact for your life. Now let's get into some pricing blocks on the next slide. Now that you know the impact on your fee for your life, let's address the fears that we have with charging that fee. And let's talk about that concept of customary and usual, or what the market can handle. Insurance have what they call usual and customary, and they decided what that is. They decided for the benefit of their organization what they would allow. It has nothing to do with the cost of doing business or sustaining the work. Please consider how this term does not help you. And in fact, when we look at insurance companies, like people will talk about like, oh, Blue Cross Blue Shield or Kaiser, as if this is one organization, but it's actually not. Each state, and sometimes within the state, like Kaiser has two corporations, one in Northern California, one in Southern California. They have completely different fees. Every Blue Cross Blue Shield, they have different ones in each state. So you hear one person saying, oh, insurance 123 reimburses me so well, it's amazing. But in LA, that same insurance 123 is reimbursing $62, Los Angeles, California, super high cost of living. And in Ohio, they're reimbursing $132 for the same CPT code, y'all. Right? Completely. Or in Alabama and Conway, Arkansas, one of our clients, like their reimbursement rates, I was like, oh my gosh, it was just out of this world when a house brand new is $200,000 a year, right? Comparing yourself to others is simply a way to kick up the fear. The person down the street, they don't do what you do and they don't have the life you have. You're unique. The relationship and the service you provide can't be replicated by another person, right? Your needs and your lifestyle are your own. So comparing yourself to the other people is like comparing apples to oranges. Plus, you don't really know what's happening for that other person. You don't even know what they're charging. They might look successful and be in a pile of debt. Maybe they have a trust fund. We have lots of clients that have trust funds, right? And then many of us think that more training, more initials after a name, or more certifications will give us permission to charge a full fee. And yet we all know therapists with tons of certifications that don't really connect deeply and do great work. Think about it this way. If you lined up three great, amazing clinicians, or three great clinicians, and two were okay for a cheap price, like just okay, and the other one was awesome, exactly what you needed, but a little pricey, who would you choose? Many of us would choose that third one. How much does it cost for a facial at a high-end spa, y'all? Are you charging less than someone would pay for a facial? Next slide. And then, of course, and I saw this question in here, what about pro bono, right? What about sliding scale? One of the blocks that we have is this fear of being money hungry or being perceived or judged as being in it for the money. So we find a lot of therapists slide their fee, they bargain their rates with clients. And as you saw, small changes over time can really have an impact. So we recommend that sliding scale should account for no more than 10% of your fees. And in fact, we suggest that you don't factor them into your business plan at all. So if you want to do, let's say 20 clients a week is your number, and you want to do 10%, that would be 2 clients. It means you need to recalculate your fee to be 18 paying clients per week, and then have the room to do those other pieces, right? There are also other ways. There are so many other ways to give back to your community and help others in wonderful ways without sliding your fee that could be much more impactful. We give a long list of these to people in our business school, but just think of the other ways to serve beyond sacrificing your business and your financial health. We really believe you can be profitable and have your services be accessible. Service is part of a great business ethic, and we encourage it, support it, coach on it, but you have to choose how to integrate it into your business model, right? And sliding scale may not always be the answer. So let's go ahead and go into the next slide. What are the actual ethics of sliding scale? So this is from the CPH insurance. This is from a lawyer. Quote, "My view is that a sliding fee scale is unnecessary, unwise, and problematic. Most sliding fee scales used by nonprofits and other entities base the fee on the financial condition of the patient. In order to properly implement such a policy, entities must ask for certain information and perhaps supporting documentation like tax returns. Most private practitioners don't want to get into this kind of detail in their practice. Psychotherapists usually establish fees that they're comfortable charging and stay with those fees until they decide to raise their fees. Physicians and other practitioners likely establish their own usual and customary fee and typically do not change their fee for different patients. If patients can't afford the fee, he or she can be referred elsewhere." This is from Richard Leslie, JD, right? You also see another quote up here, which is from AMPT the code of ethics. Marriage and family therapists make financial arrangements with clients, third-party payers, and supervisees that are reasonably understandable and conform to accepted professional practices. Having a random sliding scale where everyone's paying something different because they asked, is that really equitable? Because one person, like one of the people that was the most aggressive in asking me for a sliding scale was a surgeon who was coming in with their physician partner for couples work. That would not have been equitable, right? So here's another list on this next slide, alternatives to sliding scale. Group therapy, providing supervision to a local nonprofit, providing online webinars or trainings, doing blogging. Like there's so many ways that we can do this. And what about insurance, right? This is on the next slide. What if the fee I need to charge is blank, but the insurance reimburses half of that or 20%? What do? You have 4 main options, right? You can, 1, charge a higher fee so that private pay clients subsidize the insurance clients. You can ask the insurance for a raise. 3, you can drop insurance panels that don't meet your needs. Or 4, you can stop getting good training and consultation, come to work when you're sick, stop paying taxes, skip lunches, let your house get foreclosed on, sell your house and rent a room, only shop at thrift stores, don't ever take time off, work weekends, see more clients than is clinically appropriate. You might be laughing at that 4th one, you might not be, but this is the reality for a lot of people. No judgment at all about insurance plans. In some areas, insurance reimbursement rates are totally sustainable. And in some areas, they're not. This is a business decision, and the ethical requirement you adhere to is to do great work, not to take insurance. Next slide. And if you determine to stop or to drop some or all of your insurance panels, it can be really scary. We get it. Most of it's a mental game with yourself. Feel free to, again, take a little snapshot of this page. Not everyone needs to get off insurance. We are not anti-insurance. You have to look at the math and see what works for you. We're anti-building a business that isn't sustainable. So you can slowly step off of others, give your clients time to adjust. Believe it or not, many will choose to stay with you. And the next slide, we have this ethical fee ways. What about raising your fee? You may have discovered through your webinar, that your fees have to go up. We want you to remember that this is not just about, this is not just for the betterment of your business. When you raise your fees ethically, it's an opportunity for the therapeutic relationship as well. We want to prepare our clients for coping with change in the world. And what better way to do that is within the therapy room. We think it's a disservice to our clients if they never experience change in therapy. Yeah, consistency is nice, but so is presence when there's discomfort. If you need to raise your fee, we teach this process, but usually we start with, hey, start with new clients first. Get a little comfortable with your fee, right? Then give 2 months notice in person and in writing. And maybe it's only 1 month. Everybody's a little different. To clients of your new fee raise, even your sliding scale, and be there through the process to determine if they're getting referred out, terminating, or continuing, right? Next slide. And if we can't have these convos with our clients, what other convos are we avoiding? Letting your client rack up hundreds or thousands of dollars in therapy bills because you're fearful of talking about money. Not charging your clients missed session fees and running yourself into debt. Letting your own frustration and burnout rack up because your business is set up for fail. And then next slide, but what if? And as we consider our options, the what if community rises and starts to throw their objectives. What if I'm pre-licensed? I'm newly licensed, just starting my business. What if people can't afford my fee? What if they think I'm greedy? You might be familiar with these committee members in our brain. The what ifs don't matter when you understand your story with money, the transformation your clients experience, and what you need to be able to give your highest and best. That's all that has to be considered. What will it take for you to honor your vision and your dream for yourself and the people that you impact? We give a full consultation script to each of our business schoolers that they modify into their own words. And what we've discovered is that 90% of the clinicians we've worked with didn't know how to talk about their fee or what clients should expect from therapy. Your awkwardness and your quickening to bargaining your fee does not instill confidence in the person seeking services. This is how this money story stuff can come in and start to creep into your business practices and in your therapeutic work. It isn't always that the person can afford your fee. it's often that you're not handling the conversation with confidence and clarity. So here is how you talk to a person that calls and asks about your fee, right? Next slide. So you're going to set the boundaries. Hey, we have 15 minutes today to chat. In this time, I want to help you make the decision that's best for you. At the end of the call, if it's a good fit, I'll schedule. If not, I'll give you some other resources you can use. You find out, hey, what are you looking for? Why now in particular? Then you discuss, hey, here's how I work. Does this sound like what you're looking for? Yeah, awesome. Hey, here's my fee and how I handle insurance. It's this much. It's $150 for a 50-minute session. It's $225 for a 50-minute session. Simple. Does that work for you? Yeah, that works for me. Awesome. Here are the appointment times I have available. And if they'd like to schedule an appointment, or you can, again, you ask them any questions. If the fee is an issue, handle their fees not by lowering your fee, or their fears, not by lowering your fee, but by talking about the investment, their transformation, their expectations, and their concerns. I've talked with people and said, well, what you were expecting? They're like, I didn't really know, like $20. Well, yeah, no, $20. It's not going to happen, right? It's for a lot of those people, even if they went to the sliding scale down the street, they're making $150,000 a year, they would be at $85 at the nonprofit working with basic students. So no, that was unrealistic. That's okay. I'm going to give them the information in a non-judgmental way so that they understand and they know, right? So pop quiz. What are 2 ways that clinical outcomes are impacted by your fees? And what are 3 ethical issues connected to private practice fees? I want you to think about these things and putting them into place. So there's a lot that's there, which is great. I realize we don't actually have access to chat in here, so I can't see what you guys are writing, but I'm going to assume you've got it. But we can put it into the Q&A too, if that's a place that you're there. Tiffany is someone that she went through this process and made peace with her money. And it made such an impact for her clinically. It wasn't just that like, oh, my business is running well. It's, oh, we can really focus on what's most important because we can show it fully. So time to decide. We know it's really scary to make changes, right? We know it's really scary to make changes and shifts. Remember, this is a marketing issue, not a fee issue. If you're getting people who are calling you up, right, and they're saying, oh, this is too expensive, I didn't know it would be this much, that's a marketing thing. You'll never be able to market a practice based on low fee alone. It's a race to the bottom. In fact, there are places where people are offering $5 for a 1-hour session. You'll never be the cheapest, y'all, right? I think it's really important to know that like there are free trainings. If you need to figure out marketing, we can talk about that later, but like there's ways to do that, but don't try to market on being cheap, right? Who's ready for some free stuff, which is always a kind of a fun thing. We're going to be talking about, so we have this ICANN notes that we're all here. Can we give them like a yay for doing this, which is really great. We're going to connect you in with some free resources that you can connect in with, which I think is really great. I'll put them in the chat or what have you for later. But also, y'all can get a free CEU. How many of you guys are excited about CEs for coming today to talk about how to set the fees? And so it's going to be done through Aspira CE. We'll send out the coupon code and all the instructions on how to do that so you can get a CE for today. Okay, so again, I'm going to put in, we'll figure out how to do this actually, in terms of we have a free trainings library where we have over 15 hours of free trainings and some more CEs for y'all on how to do business in a way that's really ethically sound. And then we also have a business school for therapists. So if you're struggling with all of like the logistics of all this stuff, let us know. We can help you out. It's awesome. It's cool. And now we'll go into questions. Does that sound good? If you haven't yet, go ahead and put this into the Q&A spot. I saw this question here of how to balance pro bono and our cash pay hardship cases, which we already touched on, right? So 10%, maybe less. And what I recommend is that you fill your full fee before you move on to your sliding scale or pro bono. I also think it's really important from an equity perspective that you have a system that everybody goes to the same system. So for a lot of people, they'll actually use, there's a couple of different nonprofits that are out there where you can get referred, where they screen the people in advance, and then you can sign up to do an hour a week with a person. They sometimes have time limited. They have the system that's already put in place. So some of these are for veterans, some of these are for therapy for Black girls. There's lots of different nonprofits out there that are really amazing. And we recommend you partner with them as opposed to just doing it from your business website. And then the other question, can you please touch on how establish sliding scale fees separate from establishing the full fee? If there's one single universal ethical formula that we can apply for clients with hardship. Again, I highly recommend that formula be done by a nonprofit that's separate from you, because there's not going to be a super great way to do that. But again, if you do come up with the formula, right, whatever that formula is, hey, this person pays 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, you have to really put it into a perspective of you can't count on that as part of your business. And the rest of this has to be your fee. I've definitely seen people who they have said, okay, everybody goes on the sliding scale. So some people will be paying $300 and some people will be paying $20, and they'll tell you, I have a spouse that makes the income and I don't need income for my business, right? So some people have a privilege of being able to say, I don't need my business to be profitable at this level. Everything here is bonus. So I'm able to give back from my business, and even though it's not profitable. Does that make sense? Guidelines for communicating fee increases to clients, any templates or letters for this notification. We do have that as part of our business school, but it's keep it really simple. Hey, I do a review of my business practices. I've determined that my fee needs to raise as of this date in 30 days or 60 days, whatever that is. I'd love to talk with you in session. Our options include wrapping up services before that date, finding you a referral, or continuing to work together. My new fee as of that date will be this, right? Super simple. You don't have to go into, I've been under a lot of debt and stress for a long time, and I finally have to do this thing. You don't have to do any of that, okay? There. And again, communicating, I say, hey, in the session, hey, something I want to tell you before we end the session. Some people even say at the beginning of the session, hey, I have some like business news, some like housekeeping. Do you want to do that at the beginning or end of the session? Right? And then tell them matter of fact, give them a piece of paper or an email if you're doing virtual services, and say, we can talk about it more next week. Bring me any questions or concerns that you have. So good job. Is there a legal ethical issue charging a person less than insurance? Yes, there can be. So with your insurance contract that you have, that insurance contract sets some different things in terms of the usual and customary. And so if you are billing the insurance and saying, here's the fee that I charge, and then you're billing someone else something totally different, then that could be considered insurance fraud. There's a great website, Barbara Griswold, called Navigating the Insurance Maze. She's fantastic. We bring her in to do free trainings. We actually have some of her free trainings on our ZennyMe site. She's fantastic, and she dives into a lot of that. I'm a nurse practitioner. I'm considering a membership type plan with up to so many visits per month. Do you have any suggestions on how to set this up? It can be kind of a little bit of a tricky thing. So what happens with some of the membership programs, when people have tried to do this, you have to be really careful about what the scenario is in your state and what the ethical code is for the organization that you're signed up for, right? As a nurse practitioner. And so it can be like, here's an example of it. So people will have like a group therapy where it's like weekly group therapy. And you're like, oh, hey, it's an 8-week group therapy. Here's the fee, right? So you could say you have a membership to that 8-week group therapy. There are some attorneys who will say, if they come to 2 of the sessions, they decide they don't want to do it. You can't really ask them to commit out through those 8 sessions. So there can be some like kind of wonky things. So it's not as easy cut and dry, and you want to really work with an attorney and look specific to your state when you're trying to get into something that goes beyond fee for service and like, here's how much you're paying month to month. Can you say the website again? So Navigating the Insurance Maze, if you Google that with Barbara Griswold, I don't know what to do in terms of, is there a way for me to do a chat, y'all? Or can I, if I do the set a sticky message, maybe that's what I can do. Ooh, here we go. Here we go. Maybe I'm new to this particular one. So here's some links to our stuff that's here. Oh, look at that. I finally found the other pieces. Okay, here we go. So let me do, now that I know where I can do that, let me pull up Navigating the Insurance Maze by Barbara Griswold. It's theinsurancemaze.com. She's fantastic. I'll put that over here. Let me go into here. Boop, boop, boop. How do you negotiate raising fees with insurance? So we have a whole system. This is part of our business school where we go into this. We have this insurance revolution system and we kind of go step by step. But in general, one of the pieces is that you have to really understand how many other providers in your area that fit your particular demographics. So looking at the kind of resources that you provide, what your specialties are, even your gender expression might be some pieces of that. So for example, and this is kind of a weird way to think about it, I had a client that had very limited people on her insurance panel. And so I was private pay. I didn't take her insurance, but her insurance paid completely 100% of what she paid me because there were no other female trauma providers on her list that could do the work with her. So think about it from that perspective of, hey, wow, I do this thing. Nobody else does fill in the blank. Hey, I just called 20 different providers and none of them have any openings. I have openings. I have availability. I have a group practice, whatever the dynamic is. Now, you can see sometimes that they can do wonky things. So like we had a client who was negotiating a pay raise, so they dropped her completely and said, oh no. And it was going to have this huge impact to the community because they were seeing so many clients and there was nobody else in her area that was providing that. So she was actually able to go to the state insurance commissioner and talk with them. And they then got involved to make that not happen and get the insurance to get back in line from there. Do you ever forgive outstanding balances due to death, illness, etc.? Yeah, for me personally, I probably, if there was a death, the biggest thing that you can do, y'all, going forward is to not create outstanding balances. It's really hard to collect. Going through collections is really hard. You get very little. We often, if we're doing our businesses right, we actually don't even have enough to collect where collection agencies want the kind of business we're going to provide. So the best thing you can do is really work towards not continuing the work. If someone's not able to pay, you need to refer them out as quickly as possible, right? And not create this crazy balance. I think it's also a place in terms of working that it's not how I want to, like, I can forgive the balance, but like ultimately it's just sitting there. I'm just not going to make myself crazy, right? I'm not going to make myself crazy. And I guess the other part is like, are you saying, is it a continuing clients where you're like, I'm just going to start fresh and I'm going to write off the $5,000 and we're going to do that moving forward? I mean, maybe, but it might have some other impacts more than you think. How do we find out if the usual and customary rate is for each insurance company in our area? This is a great question. And basically what you're asking is, how do I find out how much I would get reimbursed if I was going through that insurance company? They will not tell you until you become paneled. So the only way that you can ask is to ask around, and legally no one's supposed to tell you how much they're going. This is a little part of like the insurance racket. that they will not tell you. They want you to already have signed the document, or sometimes you go through the whole process. You might have spent weeks or months going through this process, and then suddenly there's this last little bit where there's something you're supposed to like click on that tells you what the rates are. So you really only know at the last moment, which is really important. I know we're going a little over with the questions. I'm assuming that our host will get mad at me and tell me if there's a thing. The business school for therapists, I have that at the top on a little sticky note. I see some other questions here. Boo, 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 boo. We'll send out a link. They'll give you a discount for the business school program. Yeah, I love that. How do you negotiate raising fees? Do boo, boo. Can you repeat the site? Wonderful chat. I joined late. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. If perhaps just seeing. No, okay. So this isn't a question. As a business, the outstanding balances can be written off as a loss for the business on taxes. This is how we do this. Also, the insurance adjustments are also written off. This is not true. This is not true. This is not true. I'm so sorry to tell you that, Christy. The only way that it gets written off is if you have there is all this, just, I'm going to say it in a weird way. And if you talk to an accountant, there are two ways to do your accounting. And most of us do it on a cash business, which is that the money we receive that actually is in hand, and then we take off their expenses. If we're taking the money that we received and we take off the expenses, we can't then also take off the adjustment for the insurance companies or the other piece of that. That is the big no-no tax-wise. Now, if we said, here's the amount we were going to charge, and then we take off the expenses and we also take off whatever we didn't receive, but that it doesn't change the math of it. It doesn't make it any better. It's not really a write-off. So I hope that was helpful. The business school link is not working. Oh, it's working for me. But they're going to send you a better link with a discount. Who wants a discount? Yeah, who wants a coupon? That sounds fun. Any other questions before we come up? What was your biggest learning? I'd love to hear from y'all. What was the biggest like aha moment where you're like, oh, I did not realize that? Like, what's the takeaway that you're going to be popping in? And I would love to see that in the chat. And then I'll answer this question. How do you know if your fee is too high to be sustainable and not getting enough clients? We have clients that are charging $400 or $500 a session. What usually happens is over time, you get clear on the marketing. It's funny. Let me get a drink of water. When you're setting your fee, you go through the process, you come up with your fee. Now you're going to do some market research as to who your ideal client is. How many people are actually in your area? You might find out, you know what, I'm living in this rural area where the average income is $30,000 a year. That's not going to work if I'm going to doing in-person services, right? So maybe I'm doing virtual services to my state, or maybe it's $30,000 a year, but there's a lot of people that make a lot of money in your area. And so even though the average is pretty low, there might be a certain group of individuals that you're able to work with. So there's some different things that we do in terms of creating a marketing plan and getting really clear about who the ideal client is, and knowing that the ideal client is going to be different if your fee is $500 versus if it's $150 versus if it's $50, right? The how to get the CE should be in the email as well. Yay. I work with mental health therapists for documentation improvement and billing practices, and this information looked amazing by the questions. Yay, I'm glad it was helpful, Suzanne. Christy said the formula was your favorite part, that they won't tell you till you're paneled. I know, it's crazy, but I'm so glad, Robin, that was helpful. My takeaway is that we're doing the right things with our fees. Yes, Cindy, that makes me so happy. How much money is lost if you don't collect a copay? Ooh, that's a big one. Fee setting gets into much bigger macro level issues that we must work out. Yes, that macro systemic issue that we got to work out personally. Julie said the formula is helpful. Athena, I learned that I can ask insurance panel for a raise. Yes, I'm so glad you learned that. Jennifer, the formula is helpful and I appreciate the links to the slides and the worksheet. I love the formula and info. What are your thoughts on EAP referrals? Great question. So it's like insurance. EAPs is actually where I've seen the lowest reimbursements. Now, that's not always the case. Let me be clear, but that's where I've seen the most $35 sessions. In fact, there is this one insurance company, this one EAP provider, and here's how they used to word it. And I don't know if they're still doing this. I haven't seen it for a minute, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But they would say, you can see this person as a provider for $99 for up to 3 sessions. And what most people would think was that you're going to be paid $99 for each of the 3 sessions. No, it would be $99 for up to 3 sessions, meaning if you saw them once, you got $99. And that was to take you for up to 3 sessions. So I actually had a colleague, and it was so distressing when she told me this, that she said, well, I only see them once and then I refer them out every single time because I can't see them for more than that. But she didn't get off the EAP provider list. It's unfortunate. My takeaway is I'm the agent of change and my worth is important. So my rate is my rate and I'm standing on that. Yes, Monica, I love it. Doreen, it seems to me that this model caters to rich white folks and not to the general population who can't possibly afford to self-pay. That is not true. What it does really cater to is you being really clear about your fee. And especially if you do want to have an insurance-based practice, not allowing some of these insurance companies that are being profited on by rich white people to set a fee that's unsustainable for you, right? So you don't agree to that. So in 2020, for example, during a global pandemic in the United States, the insurance companies as a whole made more profit in the billions than Amazon did. Amazon had their best year in 2020, like amazing, billions of dollars. I think it's like 17 billion. It's something crazy and I always forget it. And I should put it in here so that you guys can see it. But in that same 2020, insurance companies, more profit. So we as therapists need to get really clear on these fees so that we can start saying no to insurance contracts. And then eventually those insurance contracts have to go, oh, wait, there's no providers on here. Wait, this isn't sustainable. So then they have to change their fees, right? Does that make sense? I'm so glad this was helpful, Athena. Madeline, breaking down the percentage is in reality and actually seeing what you'll be taking home. This is scary yet challenging in a good way. Business was not my strength. So I'm so glad you're here. Carrie, great opportunity for networking and advocacy here. By looking into our local market and identifying service gaps, we can recognize how we can best fill those gaps, or if we're unable to without sacrificing our own business and self-care. Yes, we can advocate and navigate a network and partner to get those needs met in our community and not feel like we're only serving the elite. Yes, I love this. I love it. I love it. I love it. Margaret, great training. The fee setting formula is my aha moment. Yes. Yes. Always read the EAP letter for sure. Great webinar. Thanks so much. See you soon in business school. Yeah, I love it. Suzanne, if your contract to see EAP patients, the verbiage in your contract should guide your payments. Yeah, it's really tricky sometimes. So make sure you really understand. New direction, Cigna, et cetera, specify the reimbursement rates for EAP. So check your contract if your letter is different than your contract, contact your provider rep. Yes. The 10 hours of free training, that is self-paced. You can go and do it at any time. It's recorded webinars like this one that you can go and read over. So not one-to-one, unfortunately. And we do live trainings most months. We as therapists need to start demanding our worth if we want insurance companies to do so. Yes, my work is important, so I should be compensated. Yes, Jesse, I love it. How can we do that when we only see their fees after we sign the contract? So here's and I might have explained this a little bit wrong. We see the fees not until we're almost done signing the contract. Usually what happens is that like it's so close to the end where it's like the final thing and you put so many hours and it's like this they call it sunk expenses or sunk costs. There's some kind of it's in philosophy as this thing where it's like you've already sunk so much time that you're just like, oh, good. And then suddenly now you're in the contract. So there is a little window, but you have to really understand and watch for the window so that you don't miss it. And again, ask around. People often will share, even if that's not the case. If my profit is enough for my self-pay, then I can afford to take the Medicaid kids. I love to help. I can't afford to do that if I don't get enough pay. Yes, Christy, I think that's lovely. This has been helpful. You're newly licensed. Awesome, Sharky. Thanks for telling us why and how to level up and not get used by insurance companies and others because we want to help. The helping fields requires training, but many with a heart to do this are taken advantage of. Yes, sunk cost. Thank you so much, Pamela. I think that's really important. I think this is the other piece too. If you need to be charging on average $150, or actually even $100, let's say on average you need to be charging $100, and you, the insurance companies are offering you $50, and you're doing half private pay and half insurance. In order to have that insurance company give you $50, it means private pay needs to charge $150. So what we're actually doing is the private pay people are not subsidizing you, they're subsidizing those low insurance rates. That's the part that really will get you upset. And again, let me be clear, there are amazing insurance plans that do great and have great reimbursements, but you have to understand and know and do the math. Where do I find a sample letter to patients? I need to adjust my self-pay fee. You can Google it. We have them inside of business school. All my clients are cash pay or paid by an outside vendor. Setting fees are challenging, but we must understand we set our fees to operate the business. The formula provided was really helpful. Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. When I say a little window, it means that there is this last point where everything's been approved and they send you over all this documentation and you sign the final piece that says, yes, you are paneled. And you need to understand where that time is of filling out a bunch of stuff versus when you're saying, yes, whatever you send me is going to be fine financially. So it's not something to do willy-nilly. Okay. All right. I'm going to wrap it up for today. Bring back our other people. I hope that this was helpful today. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys. Thank you, iCan Notes. Can we just give a heck yeah for iCan Notes and a little round of applause for them bringing me here? I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you, Miranda. We're so glad that you came and joined us today. And we really appreciate you all joining and loved all the discussion we saw in the chat today. And we'll get all this information out to you, the slides and the handouts, as well as information on the CUs and the free trainings. So again, thank you, Miranda, for joining us. Thank you, everyone who came and participated with us today.